I'm going to invite Stu up now, and he's going to give a bit of an overview, flesh out the question, what it is that we're tackling today.
Great, thanks, Martin. There I think is a pretty common articulation of the problem that people have with religion today. We're going to look at another famous advocate against or for not atheism, but for the demise of religion in Richard Dawkins in a minute, who puts it rhetorically a bit stronger than that, and it's a little bit more brutal in the way he puts it. But I just want to show you these two voices sort of opposing religion, saying it does do more harm than good, so that we begin to get a feel for the actual issues and what's at stake. And what it seems to whittle down to here, I think it's really interesting here. He says, I'm not actually anti-belief in God, but he goes on to say it is irrational. and that I find myself increasingly opposed to it or irritated by whatever he said. So that seems to be one of the key arguments against religion and for this idea that it does more harm than good. It just is anti-rational. It doesn't make sense. And anything that inhibits or prohibits rational thought must lead to negative, bad outcomes. That's one of their key arguments. So we're going to look here at Richard Dawkins as well, and saying he said a similar sort of thing. Just check what he says.
Faith means belief in something without evidence. Without evidence, then that justifies anything. You're no longer vulnerable to somebody coming back at you and saying, hang on a minute, let me argue the case. If you believe it without evidence, which is what faith is, then you don't argue the case. You say, no, I'm not arguing that case. This is my faith. It's mine. It's private. I don't dissent from it. I don't retreat from it. You're just going to have to accept it. Now, that is evil.
And yet you spend so much of your time debating people of faith. So clearly people of faith are interested in having discussions. They're not just all blind believers insisting on their way of thought.
Nobody said anything about all of them. I mean, the vast majority of religious people are perfectly good, nice people, as you are. There's no suggestion I've ever made that all religious people are evil. Of course not. There is a logical progression that goes from believing in faith, having faith that your God tells you to do something, and doing terrible deeds, like suicide bombing, like flying planes into skyscrapers. The vast majority of people of faith don't do such terrible things. But those people who do terrible things do it believing that they are righteous and good, and they think that they're doing the will of their gods, and they're not evil people, they're actually good people by their own rights. They believe they're doing good things, and that's why religion is evil, because it can make you do evil things, believing that they are good.
Alright, there are two perspectives to get us thinking about this question as we start to think about it. Now, Stu, would you like to make a comment to start off with, or should we take a question first?
What I want to do is start off by presenting my basic answer to this question: does religion do more harm than good? Giving you three propositions which I think kind of helpful, so I'll support it, and then open the floor to questions. So I don't know how this is going to go. You might not have any questions, or there might not be very many. So what I'll do is I'll just prattle on about my answer until you interject. That is after the first time surveying it. If you don't have any questions, I'll just keep on fleshing them out. So here's my basic answer to the question: does religion do more harm than good? Next slide. I don't know. Maybe you came to the wrong place today. I hope you're disappointed by that. I don't know. But there is an incredible truth and beauty within religion. So that's my answer to the question: does religion do more harm than good? I don't know. It's really kind of complicated. Really, it's not simple to answer that question. But there is an incredible truth and beauty within religion. That would be my answer. And now here are three supporting ideas or propositions under that I hope will flesh that out a bit. First of all, saying religion is the root of all evil is like saying humanity is the root of all evil. Now, I think if you just look at what humanity has done through the centuries, I think you could argue, if you've got a Hitchens or a Dawkins arguing the case that humanity is just depraved and evil, I think they could rhetorically present a very compelling case, just as they do with, religion is the root of all evil. But we just know, don't we, that it's more complicated than that. And even if you could somehow, I don't know how you do this, by the way, but even if you could sort of empirically demonstrate that humanity has done more harm than good, it certainly doesn't mean that humanity is therefore innately evil, or that we should get rid of all humanity or eradicate it. It doesn't mean that. So that's my first point. I think that's a good analogy for this argument against religion. Secondly, inasmuch as religion puts itself beyond reason and in opposition to it, I agree it's a bad idea. Now, notice I'm not saying that it does more harm than good, but I do agree it's a bad idea. So I think religion, partly by definition, although it's very hard to define religion, but religion, partly by definition, includes transcendence. It is about that. And so in that sense, it just has to be at one level, at least beyond the empirical sciences. However, religion should not defy it. It shouldn't contradict reason. It should be in complement with reason. So any religion that is both beyond it but contradictory to reason, I agree, it's a bad idea. Like there should be a reason to believe in something, even which is in part beyond reason. Thirdly, Jesus himself was a fierce critic of religion. So I'm going to show you some passages later on, if you don't have any questions, and I probably will anyway, of Jesus' takedown on religion. And it is really brutal. It is more brutal, I think, than I've ever heard come from the mouth of Hitchens and Dawkins. I'm just simply making the point that for a long time, religious people have recognised the real danger and harm of religion gone wrong. And so that's going back to this first point. I don't know if the original critical truth is in religion. That's the angle from which Jesus is coming from. He doesn't take down religion full stop. Jesus seeks to show the true religion, the right way of understanding religion. Okay, so we'll leave it there with those that basic answer in 3 points, and now we'll just open it up to questions. So let's go. We've got our roving mic here, so yeah. Shoot.
Does anyone have any questions? I haven't received any text messages yet, but please send them on the screen. Tom, ask.
What do you mean by religion? That's the Greek word.
So the question is, what do you mean by religion? How do you define it?
Yeah, well, I will define it, this is my definition, as the means by which we connect with, communicate with the transcendent, that which is beyond empirical observation. Yeah. But that's my definition. One of the interesting things about this is that there is no universal definition for religion. There are attempts to try and define all religions under one banner, but they seem to have pretty much failed. Yeah. And different people will define religion differently depending on which religion they're a part of and what angle they're coming from. Yeah. So for some it's lots about sort of morality, moral codes. For some it's about sort of rituals and observances like this.
Another question?
Just a clarifying question. If you're saying your basic answer is you don't know, but there's incredible truth and beauty within religion, are you talking about religion broadly or specifically?
Yeah.
Christian religion, or are you talking all world religions?
Both, but more particularly the Christian religion, of course. empirical science of trying to weigh up on the basis of utilitarian ethics whether religion's done more harm than good. I don't know how anyone could tell us that. Like if you just look at what has been the effect of religion through the ages. Yes, I think you can point to lots of terrible things done in the name of religion. But then again, you can also point to lots of really good things done in the name of religion. So I don't know how you can answer that question. But what I am quite convinced of is that there is an incredible truth of beauty within religion, specifically, of course, in the Christian religion. Yeah, I believe there's reason to think that. Yeah.
I might throw my own question next. If we substitute the word religion with Christianity in the question, in what ways would you think Christianity does harm, and in what ways do you think it does good?
Well, I think that, because there are different ways of answering that. I think that if we're talking about all that comes under the banner of Christianity by virtue of the fact that it calls itself Christianity, whether or not it actually is Christianity or not, well then what sort of harm has been done? Well, a lot of harm. And how much harm? Possibly more harm than good. If we're talking about authentic Christianity, or what I'd argue is authentic Christianity, what Jesus is particularly, when he takes down religion, he is talking about the authentic version of the religion that he is taking down. Okay? So when we're talking about the authentic version of religion, I think even that can do harm when it's misappropriated. So there are people who are genuinely, authentically disciples of Christ, who are Christians, who nonetheless do things that are harmful because they have misunderstood the implications of Christianity. Yeah. But I would certainly argue in that case that sort of Christianity is definitely done more good than harm. Yeah. Is that a question?
Yeah, there's some good thoughts in there. Does anyone have a follow-up question? I will say that you can raise a question you don't necessarily yourself agree with. You've heard someone else say the devil's advocate approach. So any questions are completely fine.
So, don't you think that religion just puts unnecessary guilt on people? The imposing of moral standards, or particular rules, commandments, etc. Don't you think that could just set a person off, and all the good intentions of setting these morals just puts people under guilt and shame?
So to clarify your question, you're saying sometimes religion can be harmful because it's constricting people's moral freedom, it's putting a lot of rules in. Is that what your question is?
Yes, and it could result in unnecessary feelings of guilt and shame.
Okay, unnecessary feelings of guilt and shame.
Does Christianity create guilt in people? I would say absolutely yes. But it doesn't therefore become bad. Well, it's certainly not the root of all evil. I think that often that argument is coming from the angle of Christianity just simply not agreeing with what we purport to be our ethical code these days. So, guilt's a reality. Guilt's a reality. Guilt is something that is very widespread inside and outside of Christianity. That's a part of the human condition. People write and talk about that all the time. And, psychologists are often talking about dealing with guilt and not feeling guilty and overcoming guilt. So that's the first thing. Guilt's just a human reality. Secondly, ethical codes are a human reality that create guilt in whoever falls outside of it. So, as a society, we have a certain, you can argue how we got it, we do have an ethical kind of code that sometimes can be articulated, sometimes it's just a vibe that sort of bubbles up organically, that evolves, if you like. But if you fall outside of that, you will feel guilty. You'll feel like do you know what I mean? So, you can't argue on the basis that, Christianity disagrees at certain points on what is good or bad, but therefore unnecessarily puts us under guilt. What we have to argue is the validity of its ethical code. Does that answer the question? Yeah, I'm trying to be too abstract or wordy, but yeah, so basically, yes, guilt's a reality. It can make people feel guilty, but that is by no means necessarily means it's bad or wrong. That's an argument of what justifies the ethical code. That's really what the evidence about.
Alright, Mike, can you share some of your more thoughts that you have on the next slide?
Keep fleshing this out.
Keep
Okay.
fleshing it out.
Cool. Okay. So let's go with. Let's go with the point that we're back in there. So Jesus himself is pretty religious. So let's go. Do you want to go to the next slide there, Matt? And I'll show you some of the stuff that Jesus says about religion, which I've got written down himself. So he says in Matthew, this is one of his famous takedowns on religion. And it says there in Matthew, the teachers of the law, also this is what Jesus says to the crowds and to his disciples, the teachers of the law, the Pharisees, sit in Moses' seat. So you must be careful to do everything they tell you, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. Everything they do is done for people to see. They make their phylacteries wide and the tassels of their garments long. They love the place of honour at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues. They love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and be called rabbi by others. He goes on later on, woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You travel over land and sea to win a single convert, and when you have succeeded, you make them twice as much a child of hell as you are. You snakes, you brood of vipers, how will you escape being condemned to hell? Therefore I am sending you prophets and sages and teachers, some of them you will kill and crucify, others you will flog in your synagogues and pursue from town to town, and so upon you will come all the righteous blood that has been shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel, the blood of Zacharias and of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Truly I tell you, all this will come on this generation. So, he's pretty vicious assault, don't you think? And it's a vicious assault on his own religion. So this is not just religion that he considers is wrong. It's upon the teachers of the law that he's saying that one that we should respect, because they are teaching the law of God, which is in alignment with true, good, right religion. But it's just that they are hypocrites. They've got caught up in the honour and prestige of being a religious leader, and they're putting burdens on people's backs without lifting a finger themselves. And he says, woe to you, brood of vipers. So my point there is that there has always been, at least within Christianity, a recognition that religion absolutely can easily go astray. And that one of the most potent forces for evil in the world is in fact hypocritical religion. That has self-consciously been a part of Christianity from its beginning. And that self-awareness, I think, is important because it's supporting the idea that a lot of harm can be done in the name of religion. But that does not mean that religion is intrinsically bad or evil or what have you. A lot of the argument from New Atheism, I think, I've got to say, a lot of the critiques of the arguments of New Atheism, I think are a bit pedantic. Like, so they say he hasn't really understood this philosophical argument for the existence of God and all this kind of stuff. And that may well be the case. They sort of pick on their inaccuracies, its historical inaccuracies, when they talk about the Bible, and it is grating sometimes when New Atheists will write things that you know are just historically inaccurate. But their basic argument of the New Atheists, I think, is pretty solid. Like, a lot of the time they're just kind of shouting out the emperor has no clothes. But they're just saying, you claim all these things in the name of religion, but on what basis? And, I think there's between the new atheism critique of religion and Christianity's self-critique and its critique of other religions. But the massive difference is that new atheism is saying, therefore, religion is evil and needs to be eradicated. Whereas Christians say, no, that's not the case. It's just like with anything. There are ways it can easily become misconstrued, maladjusted, all that kind of stuff. I think that's the basic argument, and I think it's a fairly obvious point to make, but I do think the rhetoric of new atheism is sort of watered down this one. Like, suicide bombers, religion's evil, get rid of religion. That's kind of a basic argument. And I think it's kind of got traction, that argument. But I think it's fairly obviously flawed, that argument, don't you? Like, suicide bombers, religion, therefore must be evil, get rid of religion. Like, really? Is that a sensible argument?
Alright, I might pause you there.
Yeah.
I do have a question by text message, but since it's on a different topic, does anyone have a question or want to respond to what Stu's just said then?
So can you summarise what actually is wrong with that argument? The argument that, suicide bombers, therefore religion's evil, therefore we should get rid of it. So in a nutshell, why is that argument flawed?
Well, very simply, why does a suicide bomber make religion inherently evil? Like, that's the simple critique of that argument. How do you demonstrate that? I mean, there are lots of bad things done in the name of all sorts of things. So, I mean, like I was saying with humanity. I mean, you could argue that with humanity. Human beings are suicide bombers. Therefore, human beings are inherently evil. We should get rid of them. Isn't it the same way? I don't know. I just think it's fairly clear that it's a very, I just think it's very crude and unsophisticated analysis of the problem.
But in many cases, the inspiration for the action is the religious text.
Yeah, that's the really interesting thing about that is I've just been reading a book on this topic, as you'd imagine. It's one of the important topics to cover. And Alistair McGrath, who writes this book that I highly recommend, Why God Won't Go Away, cites empirical data that has scholars researching it agreeing that the primary motivation for suicide bombers is not religious at all, it's political. So yes, it's in the mix, but it's not the primary motivation. They cite as the primary motivation political oppression. So that's really interesting. So that's the research point. And he's just sort of saying it's an inconvenient truth for new atheists who want to argue that kind of line. Like, it's just an unsophisticated argument. Like, yeah.
Another question at the front?
So based on that, and sort of do we have an obligation to defend all religions, freedom of all religions?
Do we have the obligation to defend the freedom of all religions?
Including those we might not agree with?
Including those we disagree with.
Like, for example, I have watched it, like, people are criticizing ISIS and saying, is this a true reflection of Islam? Or is the person sort of stand by is many people, write in the newspapers and say this isn't a true depiction, it's not really what our religion is about, we're peaceful. Or is the person sort of stand by that sort of interpretation? But especially as we want to do the same thing. We look at the best whereabouts to just think that's not the true religion. As you mentioned before, do we have to stand by all religion?
Yeah. Well, look, this is tapping into, I think, partly ethics. Like, how we determine what is right and wrong, what is evil, that kind of stuff, which I think is difficult. So I don't have a very super crisp answer. But a crisp, simple answer on that would be tolerance does not mean agreement. I think that's a really important distinction. So or being a tolerant society, I don't think means that we're compelled to agree with everything. So we would want to, I think it's right in our society as a part of our values to allow freedom of religion. But we also, within that, have the freedom to really argue the toss over whether a religion is in and of itself legitimate, and whether or not particular things it's doing is good or bad. We have absolute freedom to argue, and we should argue that. So I think Christians should, in one and the same breath, be saying Muslims should be free to pursue and practice their religion, like we should be arguing for that, but that there are some things which are evil and wrong about that religion. I think we can argue both, and that has to be teased out. Yeah. So there's a tension there, but I think does that make sense?
Alright, I'm going to ask a question I have by text. Within Christianity, is there ever a justifiable situation to support war?
Read the text again, if you're trying to think about it.
Within Christianity, is there ever a justifiable situation to support warfare?
Yes, I think there is. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. To support warfare is a different thing. Which I think belongs to the political sphere. Is a different thing to instigating it yourself from the inside. So, is there any justification for Christians to take up arms against anyone or anything as a political entity? No, there isn't. Can we support a country going to war as Christians, and so it's a good thing to do? Yes, we can. Yeah.
What's the distinction between the former and the latter?
Well, it's the difficult relationship between theocracy and the politics and powers of this world. So Christianity believes in a kingdom which is fundamentally spiritual. Yeah. So it's actually by its nature different to the kingdoms of this world. Yeah. So that means that it doesn't act in exactly the same way, and that there is this sort of sometimes difficult to navigate tension between the two. So that's why Jesus says that puzzling thing. He says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's and think what is God's. And he's talking about Jews. He's talking to Jews who are part of political Israel. They identify with that. Who are being suppressed by the Roman emperor. And Jesus comes into this context as the Messiah, and they're expecting him to say, stick to the Roman Empire. And he's articulating there that actually the kingdom I'm ushering in is fundamentally different from the kingdoms of this world and operates on different principles. So submit, therefore, to the present political power and submit to God. Yep.
So in light of the fact that Jesus' kingdom is not of this world, in light of the fact that Jesus clearly says on an individual level, don't harm others, offer the other cheek, why is it not fair to extrapolate from that and say, therefore we shouldn't also support our governments in going to war? Because that, on a government level, on a state level, that does involve killing others.
Well, because there's a separation between church and state, they're different things, and they're operating at different levels. So I think that if it's not possible, just say a country could be a Christian nation, I don't think it should go to war. Yeah. But at the that's not a possibility, though. Yeah.
Are you sort of saying that we should actively seek war, like say there are two sides in a conflict, that it's okay to support one of those sides?
No, you can even go to war as a Christian. I'm just sort of saying that you just have to recognise there is a real difference between what we're talking about, or the kingdom of God and the kingdom. There's actually a difference between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of this world. God in Christ wants all Christians everywhere to actively convey the message to the world that God is about extending mercy even to our enemies, and love and grace and kindness even to our enemies. That's what the kingdom of God is about in this world now. It is not actually, Christianity is not particularly concerned about establishing and standing up for its rights in this world. Nations are, and they ought to be. Right? And that at one level is because God is a righteous judge and cares about right and wrong. Yeah. So at the level of standing up for justice, I think Christians can wholeheartedly get behind a nation going to war if it's for good reasons, ethically, right? If it's standing up for what is right. But Christians, I go back to that original point, Christians, their main concern as Christians is not establishing their rights, or even particularly what is right and wrong that matters, but rather they're concerned about establishing the nature of God's relationship with humanity, which is mercy and grace and forgiveness and turn the cheek. Do you know what I mean? So there's an actual difference between what they're about, like the church and the state. Because that's why it's really messy, is the work in the church and state, not separated.
Yeah, question.
So if all of Christianity became a nation and they would attack another nation, does that mean that they should count themselves as a different check and let that nation take over their nation?
No. So I think you can defend yourself, but actually the original, I've got to deny that original premise. So I don't think it's possible for a country to become a Christian country. But you can. Yeah, I don't think that Jesus' teaching on turning over the cheek was finally saying, as an individual Christian, or in any respect, you cannot defend yourself against harm. Yeah.
So to bring that to a more plausible level, if you're the father of a family and someone wants to kill you and your family because you're Christian, then it'd be okay to defend yourself and your family, right?
Just for people who didn't hear that, I'll rehash it. So if you're a father and someone wants to kill you and your family, what should you do about it? Is it okay to protect your family?
Well, I think we're getting a little bit off track in that this is trying to tease out the ethics of Jesus and his kingdom, right? Like what does he mean when he says turning the cheek? What I'm trying to establish is that is the primary ethical principle of the kingdom of God. So as opposed to being concerned about our rights here and now, the kingdom of God in this world is concerned about showing mercy and grace even to the enemy, right? Exactly how that teases itself out in terms of everyday Christian living, there are varying opinions on that. My own opinion would be turning the other cheek does not mean on a personal Christian level that you can't defend the welfare of your family if it's in danger. It's actually not a final saying. That would be my take on that. But, yeah. But you get what I'm saying, though, that there's a fundamentally different principle to the ethics of the, so
Okay, so changing it.
yeah.
What would you say to the argument that though there may be good religion, the ethics, the beauty, it is fundamentally unnecessary that we could get what religion gives us apart from religion?
So to rehash your question, you're saying even though religion might have some benefits, such as in the top point, is it unnecessary?
So the position coming out of the line.
Yeah. Well, yes, I think that you can argue that, although I'm not convinced you necessarily you'll successfully, but if religion is just morality, absolutely. I think so, yeah. But I don't think it is, so I think it depends how you define religion again. But if, and this is starting to approach upon next week's territory a bit, but if religion, one of the fundamental aspects of religion is revelation, that is, knowing something about the transcendent, knowing something about the beyond and above, if that's what religion is about, it is absolutely necessary. Like science, by definition, cannot give us that. So science, for instance, if you builds knowledge from the ground up, based on observation. What religion is claiming is that it gives us knowledge from beyond via revelation. It is God making herself known to us. So does that answer the question?
I've got a follow-up question.
Yes.
Isn't that, so you've got divine revelation.
Yes.
And precisely this claim to divine revelation, that is a particularity of each religion. So
yes.
It's essentially denying that humanity had a way of coming to the universal. Can humanity come together apart from religion? Or is religion totalizing? And isn't that the problem with religion? That it sees itself as the only true way and tries to bring everyone into that.
I don't understand, I don't think, the complexity of that question, but can you keep on asking more questions to clarify what happened? And I'll the question.
Can I try and clarify? You're saying that religion tends to polarize because each religion believes that they are true, right? And can the world come together if we were without religion?
Yes. Fair enough.
Well, hypothetically, yes, but I don't think that's the point of religion. I mean, that's what I was trying to say in the first answer, was that in as much as religion is about revelation, right, which I think it absolutely is, like it has to be about revelation, then there is no other way of knowing that does that. Do you know, is that? So apart from any other implication bound up with religion, that alone means that we need religion. And you have to argue, of course, then, for revelation as a legitimate way of knowing. Yeah. Which I think you can, of course.
So how do we assess various religious claims? Is there a basis on which to do it?
Yeah, because religious claims that implicitly or explicitly claim revelation also intersect, and I don't know. There's stacks of stuff about what religions I have no idea about, but as far as I can see, most claims to divine revelation actually do intersect with reason. So, and that is the basis by which you weigh them up. Yeah. So as a Christian, we would claim that at the end of the day, the Muslim claim to revelation from God is unreasonable. So it goes beyond the empirical sciences, but it complements it, and it should always complement it, and one of them will appeal to it. So yeah, there actually is a rational way of weighing up religious claims.
In the interest of time, I might stop the discussion here. Are there some parting thoughts or kind of a summary on the debate that you'd like to share with Stu?
Well, just that there is an incredible truth and beauty within religion, and that, to go back to the analogy of humanity in general, whilst we could do a compelling and powerful survey of how terrible humanity was, it would be such a shame if, because of that, you just thought humanity was a complete basket case. There was nothing good in it. You distance yourself from it. You think it should be eradicated. That would be just, well, not just nonsensical, it would just be a shame. It would be a real shame. And similarly with religion, even though there are some largely valid and powerful arguments about the extent of religion's harm in the world, I think that's real. Nonetheless, it would be a terrible shame to make that illogical leap to religion, therefore, is innately evil, and it does more, like there is no good in it. And particularly, of course, I would say Christ